All right, guys. Well, we're going to get right into the story because there's been, this month, life has thrown me some curveballs and I have some making up to do. So let's get this one out of the way. And this is going to be for all tiers. This one will eventually be on YouTube. We're going to talk about what happened while I was at Centinella State Prison, because last time we ended on quite the cliffhanger, you know, because things have been getting set up. So meth had hit Centinella via Happy Card, and that pretty much was like the truce, you know. I mean, if there's going to be a statue of when S&Y GP made up, it would be some Southsider licking a greeting card and Chubbs licking his ass in bronze at Centinella, the day that the crystal meth brought both of these populations together. And that lasted for about a week. But this is the thing with that. Once the homies, right, so that's the Southsiders, once they'd made that decision not to get off that yard, oh no, we don't want to get off the yard. We want to eat some crystal meth that's been doused on a greeting card and get high, and yeah, we'll just blame our drug addiction. And they would actually say stuff like that, like, well, I'm just going to lie and say that I paroled from a level 4 yard or whatever, not a mixed yard. Probably not a good idea, because when they're found out, they're essentially considered no good. But the point of the story is that a large portion of the so-called GPs, including me, we're no good now. We're fucked. We've been on this mixed yard for, I mean, I've been there going on a month, but longer than that, and it's been hell. I've been in a bunch of riots. It's absolutely terrifying. And, you know, now I get in a situation where I have this cellie, Keanu Reeves' brother, Kyle Chubbs. Kyle wasn't even his real name. I don't even know why I'm saying that. He was cooking alcohol in my cell, which I didn't like, because now I'm risking getting another 6 months tagged onto my sentence. And then on top of all of that, on top of the fact that I don't want to go to Chow, because every time I go to Chow, there's something popping off, I got caught masturbating by a correctional officer. He's like, hey, man, no more of that. I was like, oh. And I'm all twacked out, so I'm not even stopping. I'm like, yeah. I'm just scratching, man. I know. He knows. No, that didn't happen. But I did get caught jerking off. So the whole thing is fucking weird. Then on top of all that, a new bus comes. Kite comes to my cell. Hey, we're going to war. 2-5 nation, baby. All the S&Y versus this new bus. But when they say all the S&Y, so I guess what had happened, and I didn't know this when I ended last video, right? Because I didn't even know that my cellie was a 2-5. So real quick, just so that you know what the different, like what that even means, basically, it's not like a traditional gang where you have to like be from a neighborhood. They'll take everybody, you know. It's like, if you're looking at it at football, this is like the third string gang members, you know. These are the guys that are usually sitting on the bench. They get made fun of, but now that they're S&Y, they can finally, like, they finally made the cut and they can be 2-5ers. There's no point to be a dropout and then join a gang. It's like a complete oxymoron, right? Hey, I'm going to be considered a piece of shit, and then I'm going to be such a piece of shit that I'm going to be in a piece of shit gang. So now you're actually like bragging about how much of a piece of shit you are. Oh yeah? Oh, you think you're no good? You know how no good I am? I'm in a fucking no good gang. So you're like a superhero in the no good world. Like you're like a no good all-star or something. That's what these gangs pretty much are. It's like the worst of the worst. And they'll take any, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not exclusive to race. There's like some farmer skinhead there. He's like, hey, I don't like blacks or Mexicans, but I'm no good, so I'll be with you guys. They're like, we'll take you. Like, they'll pretty much take everybody. I got a rape on my jacket. They're like, come on, bro. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that when we're fighting. You're just like, Jesus, man. I told on the dudes I grew up with, come on, man. Come on. You'll ride with us. We'll beat those other guys up for, staying good the whole time. Oh, those guys that have integrity? Pieces of shit, man. Because it's like opposite like that. Like, these guys, from what I noticed, my observation about with being around SNY people is that they're mad at GP. Now, I was mad at GP multiple times on that term. I got fucked off for reasons that I shouldn't have. I saw somebody comment on one of my old videos when I got jumped at Santa Barbara County Jail. And I don't know if I'd already said this. People are always like, oh, he's like some drunk guy. He's always repeating himself. Yeah, I put out a lot of content. I put out stuff on Patreon. I put out stuff on YouTube. So there's a lot of information. I don't know what I've already said and what I haven't. But I did see, and I vaguely remember commenting on this, or like mentioning that somebody had said this in the comment section, that they were at Santa Barbara County Jail back when I'd gotten jumped. And what they had heard is that I promised people packages and they didn't come or whatever. I guess that's the narrative that they were putting out there. That's not true. Truth is I was the only one that had money in there. Nobody had commissary coming. I have a big heart. I'm a generous person. I had my girl get everybody packages. I also bought all the dope. So there was animosity built up because I got control of the dope. And it's not like I wasn't, giving people free drugs. I was just making them work for it. Looking back, I guess that's lame. I'm like, nah, you want to do heroin? You have to do burpees first. 123, you got to be a solid white boy and I'll give you your issue. So I can see where resentments would be built up. But the fact that they smashed me out and took my shit, broke my ribs, makes them the bad people, not me. That's a bad call. And any true convict would look at that and say that those are not good white people. They're not solid Peckerwoods. You don't do that. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. I mean, ultimately I got revenge on the first one when I got transferred back from the feds and I kicked him in the face while he was sleeping. Bitch move? I think not. I think that I had every right to do that. I think that, I'd already cut off my dick and mailed it to a relative. And then they refused the package. So I got it returned to sender. My dick was all smashed. I was like, you know what? I'm going to tie that back on and I'm going to kick this dude that jumped me while he's sleeping. That's the ultimate dope fiend. You think dope fiend is being at a bar and just punching someone when they're not waiting for it? The ultimate dope fiend move is kicking somebody in the face while they're sleeping in a holding cell. That's masterful dope fiend move right there. And then the second time when I was at Victorville, I end up going to the hole under investigation. I want to come out because I still owe money, and they're so dumb at Victorville, the stupidest people I've ever been around. They think that I must have checked in because I came out to pay my bill. I don't know. I was in the federal system for a long time. I never knew anybody that checked in that came back out of the hole and they're like, you know what? I checked in, but I had second thoughts on it. And then come to find out that I was ambushed. The whole thing was like a setup. But those guys actually fucked up. I was supposed to get whacked. I was supposed to get stabbed. I just had a kid. I was supposed to get stabbed because I came out of the hole to pay a debt. And they end up getting me like that. You ask me, that's all bullshit. They're in the wrong. Did I have animosity towards general population at that point? No, I didn't. I had animosity at myself. I was mad at myself for putting myself in the situation. I put myself in prison. Charlie Vecchio helped by telling on me. But I wouldn't have gone to prison if I wasn't putting myself around pieces of shit like that in the first place. Generally, you don't catch a pimping and pandering case unless you're hanging out with dirtbags. And that's what I was doing. So if there's anybody to blame for the situation, it's not the police, it's not the courts, it's me. Nowadays I don't hang out with people like that, so I'm not put in those positions. Point is, though, I never was bitter at general population. The more that I was around people that were PC, SNY, by the time that I got to Centinella, I saw that a lot of them had been done dirty the same way that I had. So they hated general population. I didn't look at it that way. You know, in fact, the guys that get off the bus and they want to take off on someone that's PC so that they can get off the yard, I get it. You know, if it was a few years before that, if I didn't just have a baby, I would probably be on the same stupid, ignorant trip. But I certainly wasn't mad at these guys for doing what they thought was the right thing. But that's how they looked at it. So now what had happened is we'd been at this place for a while. Numbers had been built. Numbers had been built by default, too. I mean, really think about that. We get there. Think about when I first got at this yard. I get to this yard, and there's like, 50, 60 general population. I'm considered SNY with a small group of like 4 or 5 people. And what happened is the longer that these people stayed at that yard, now all of a sudden they're considered SNY themselves. So the numbers for the 2-5ers started growing exponentially at that point. I didn't know that because I wasn't going to chow. I wasn't in the mix. I certainly didn't know that my celly was a 2-5er. I didn't even know what that meant. I'd only heard like rumors about that. You know, you hear them from like the toothless Peckerwoods that you're encountering with. They're all, yeah, man, these fucking PCs. Yeah, I heard they're in gangs now and that they're allowed to fag off, you know? Yeah, it sounds whack, man. And they're like, yeah, for sure. And, you know, those are the ones that, like, you catch, like, in the mop closet getting sucked off by a pice. And they're like, oh, man, I don't even know, man. This pice, I don't even speak Spanish. I was just trying to buy a set of cards, man, some playing cards. And this pice started sucking my dick, man. It's a lot of that closet shit, you know? Like, where, in my experience, if you're homophobic, I've said it before and I'll say it again, you secretly think the wieners look delicious. Or you know that they do. You know that they do. You're all hard in prison and then you fucking check in on that person like a few years later. You're like, whatever happened to Bobby Peckerwood? Oh man, he's living with his boyfriend in Pakistan, man. You know, and they always like mispronounce shit. Like, you're like, all right, whatever. And it's true. There's a lot of like weird closet homosexual stuff going on. And I mean, none of that affects me. I'm just saying, said it a million times, prison's the fakest culture in the world. And it's this, and I'm not just talking about like people that are closet gay that want to hate on gay people and they have swastikas, but like they really want to make out with Pisces. I'm not talking about that per se. I'm talking about the fact that there were all these dudes that were so-called active GP. As soon as some meth hit with that happy card, all of a sudden, like, you know, they secretly didn't want to be active anymore, right? And then all of a sudden, there's like a reason. So they're like, well, you know, I'm only on the other side because I wanted to smoke meth, or I wanted to eat a greeting card with meth on it or whatever. So there's a lot of these fake people. Regardless of what the situation was, now basically all the guys that I'd been with up until that point, that sounds horrible. Yeah, all the dudes that I'd been with. I mean, we're talking about like 40 or 50 dudes I'd been with. The guys that were at this particular orientation section of the prison, the GPs or the PCs, and I didn't know who was who. It didn't matter because they were all PC now. Just think of it that way. Not to overly complicate it. All of the guys that were at orientation at this point were PC. And then on top of that, the 2-5ers started recruiting them. So everybody started getting like turned out and they were all like 2-5ers. I didn't even like, you know, when I thought of PC gangs, I thought it was like some mystical shit. I don't know. They were like communicating with seashells or something. They had like seashell fucking phones with like cords out sticking out of it. And they're like, yeah, man, we got a PC meeting at 9 o'clock. And they just like hear the little echoes in the seashells. Oh, actives? Yeah, fuck those solid dudes. We're gonna beat them up when they get here, and that's exactly what they were planning on doing. So this big bus had come in, and the whole plan was to go to war with them. They had procured some knives at this point. Chubbs had one. And I felt super uncomfortable with the fact that he had alcohol brewing in our cell. So there's pruno getting fermented. It reeks. It smells like a brewery. My mom used to say that when I come home all wasted. She'd be like, oh, smell like a brewery. She didn't talk like that, but she did say the brewery thing. And that's exactly how our cells smell. And I'm like, God, man. So now not only if they hit the pad and find that we're making alcohol, but they're also going to find this knife that was pretty sizable. I mean, you're talking about, like, I'm looking at real time, kind of inadvertently if we get caught. And now they're basically saying that if I don't put in work, it's just so weird. People don't want to be in GP because I don't want to be told what to do. Who's the real bitch? The guy that gets told what to do by another inmate? Or the guy that programs with child molesters and he's PC, but he doesn't have to listen to other guys? And you can fuck dudes, too. It's like they'd say stuff like that. I'd be like, oh man, that sounds dope. Why wasn't I SNY before? But their whole thing is that they're like rallying against being told what to do, and now they're on the other side. They're PC, they're SNY, and they want to be in a gang. A multiracial gang. 4 black guys, a Native American, 3 Southsider dropouts, and a farmer skinhead. He gets his dick sucked by Pisces in mop closets. That guy. They're all like on the same team now, so it's very odd. So I have to make this like decision, you know. I'm like, God damn, what am I gonna do? And what happens if you check in when you're already checked in? Like, I'm no good now. So what happens if I fucking check in? I'm like, hey man, I gotta go. You roll it up from SNY? What are they gonna do? Be like, all right man, come here, yeah, go out that door. And you just like walk off a plank and you like go into some like pit with like people that dropped out from being a dropout. Like, where do you even go past that point? They turn you into a cyborg? I don't know. I didn't know what was going to go on. I'm pretty sure that if at that point, if I'd gone up to a cop and was like, hey man, I can't be here, I think I probably just would have gone to the hole somewhere. I was already in the fucking hole. That's what I'm saying. How much worse could it get? So now Chubbs is all like, look, this guy hasn't worked out since I've been in there. I try to work out with him because like now I'm getting closer to going home. Right, I think my date at that point was, forget what it was. I think it was like July or something of 2019. I think that's when I was supposed to go home. And if committee approved me, it would have taken me down to like April or March or something because the 33% would have gone in. And so I started working out, right? Like I'd wake up because now I have my Kendrick Lamar album. So I like wake up right when, you know, before breakfast or whatever, because Chubbs would be going to breakfast and I wouldn't. I'd listen to my album, do body squats, do push-ups, whatever. Chubbs never did anything. I'd be like, hey man, you want to work out? And he'd be like, huh, you're good. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm good. Yep. Getting pussy when you're not in prison, that's whack. You're right. Keep looking the way you do, bro. I'm going to do my body squats. He's like, all right. And so he'd just like sit there and, you know, he'd always put his beanie over his face like he was some drunken cowboy. He'd like pass out with his legs crossed together and he'd be like kick back with his beanie over his face. It was really weird. I don't know where the cowboy reference came from. I'm really sorry that I did. I will never do that again. I promise. Never associate that fucking dude with a cowboy. So I'm starting to do like my body squats, but now that and push-ups, and now that this guy knows that we're like going to war, he's like, dude, we gotta train, bro. I'm like, what do you mean? The riot's tomorrow night. He's like, yeah, but you know, I want to start working out just to get the adrenaline going a little bit. I'm like, all right. And he's like, I swear, he's like doing jumping jacks. I'm like, yeah, dude, like 9 jumping jacks is gonna get you conditioned for the riot tomorrow night. He's like, hold on. And he like grabbed his knife from the mattress. He's like, check this out. And he like did a somersault and like fucking like jumped up with the knife. He's like, how was that move? I'm like, you're not going to do that in a riot, bro. So what do you mean? Have you ever been in a riot? I'm like, I've been in fucking like 5 since I've been here. Yeah. And I was at Win One at San Bernardino. And one thing I never saw when I was in a riot was somebody jump, do a somersault, twirl his knife out like he's in the fucking Olympics or something. And he's like, oh, you're just a hater. And then he's like, went back in his bed. I'm like, what's up? I thought you were going to do jumping jacks. He's like, I'm winded. I'm like, all right, dude. Wow. This is what I'm risking doing more time. Yeah. Fuck going home to Nico and my chick. I get to stay here with Chubbs who can't even do 9 jumping jacks. Has these delusions that he's going to do somersault knife jabs or whatever the fuck he was doing. So the next morning, we wake up. Chubb's like, let's go to breakfast. I'm like, whole busload full of people came. There's definitely people that are going to get off. He's like, yeah, but this isn't the main riot. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm not even going to chow, right? So I don't go to chow. Well, I stay at the cell. So I'm kind of like nervous, right? Because when you know that a riot of that magnitude's going to crack off the morning of, and like, those are the most brutal riots, you know? People always think that, I think they assume that it's like, you know, like in the movies where like somebody farts and they're like, you didn't say excuse me. And they pull out like nunchucks and everybody just starts going at it. Someone has a trident and they're like, yeah, fuck you. Like goes through their heart. And it's just some spontaneous like pocket of violence that breaks out. And I've been in those. Those are bad. But let me tell you something. The riots that are really bad in prison are the ones that are premeditated like this. This was premeditated, knives, the whole night. It was going to get brutal real quick. So when he goes to chow, I can't go back to sleep. You know, I'd already done my little morning workout routine or whatever. And I'm listening to music and I'm looking out the cell window. And I'm kind of just, you know, when a riot would pop off, you'd see a siren go. You know, this like blue light would start flashing. That's how you know something would crack off. It was like clockwork. You knew the way that the climate was at this particular prison with orientation, with everything else that was going on. When people went to chow, that's when the lights started going off. That's when shit got crazy. So I'm just kind of like listening to my music and I'm like, you know, looking out the window and I see the goon squad come in. So the goon squad is like an investigative unit of state prison. It's called the goon squad. In federal prison, they have something called SIS. And it's like the detectives of correctional officers, right? They're the ones that bust the cell phones, the drugs. When somebody gets killed, they're the ones that come and investigate it. When you see the goon squad, it's a bad sign. So they come in. Now, mind you, Chubbs left the knife in his mattress and he's got the alcohol just chill. I forget where he had it. He had it in a trash bag, but he had like wrapped blankets over it and like tied it. So it was like this big, it looked like a water bag, if you know what that is. That's like what people use to work out. It's like they'll fill a water bag up with water, put a blanket around it, tie it up, and then like, you know, you do curls with it or whatever. Kind of looked that way, but he had his alcohol in there and then he would take it out periodically and he would burp it, you know, to facilitate the fermenting process. You know, you get that, it starts like breathing bacteria and it gets the bag bloated. You have to let it out. And that's what makes it stink. But it also stinks just by it being there. Just this stagnant bag stinks. So I'm watching this goon squad, right? Now, most people are at chow. I'm kind of watching because I know that, you know, this new bus came. I knew something's going to happen. Sure enough, siren goes off. I'm like, oh, something cracked off at chow. I'm watching the goon squad. They're going door to door. So remember, last time I did a video, I was talking about how it's Christmas, right? So they're playing like, you know, Christmas music all the time. Remember, I'm depressed in Spanish. I don't even know what the fuck they're saying, but I know that it's depressing. And right around the holidays, prisons know that that's when people get festive. That's when a lot of people get depressed. People make alcohol around Christmas, New Year's, etc. Goon squad is going cell to cell looking for alcohol. I'm like, that checks out. I'm not as worried about the alcohol as I am with the knife. Now, the reason that I got trapped in combative, violent prisons to begin with, when I first started doing time, was because I had taken the knife shot for Boots, if you guys remember. I had a cellie named Boots. He was this big skinhead. He had a knife in his mattress, and they interviewed both cellies. Now, usually, cellies will be like, I don't know where that came from. You know, people don't usually take the blame for it. That's pretty uncommon. So, and I know Chubbs wasn't gonna, he's a fucking 2.5er. Dude's PC to begin with, like, he's not trustworthy. You know, I'm definitely still of the frame of mind that you can't trust people that are SNY. Later, I do time with SNY guys, and there were some legitimately good guys in there. It's like, not like all SNY people are bad, but of course, you're like, have this preconceived notion, you're already thinking that somebody that's on that side is untrustworthy. Especially this guy. Has a restraining order filed against him by some chick that he's like, yeah, we had a thing, bro. She blinked 2 different times. I mean, I ain't no mind reader, but where I come from, that means she wants to suck my dick. I'm like, what the fuck? That's like the kind of shit when rapists are like, yeah, she's wearing a skirt, so she was asking to get raped. Same kind of thing. It's like, just weird shit, right? The dude weirded me out. So I'm watching them go into cells, tear them up, looking for booze. They don't know that I'm in there. Riot cracked off, obviously, because the siren's going off. So now I'm frantically, oh, what up? But to finish the point, you know, I'm not going to implicate the dude. If they come and they find the alcohol, then they rip the cell apart, they find the knife, I'm not going to be like, yeah, it was that guy. I want to go home. I mean, I'm not cut like that, you know? I would never do that to somebody. And so I'm already playing the tape out of my head that they're going to come in, they're going to find the booze. Because they're going to find it. It stinks in there already. And they're looking for it specifically. That's what they're shaking down right now. And once they find that, they're going to look for the knife. Boom, I'm going to get hit for alcohol and the knife. So I'm frantically looking for the alcohol. I find it in the bag, and I'm like going to flush it down the toilet. And I just think about it. I'm like, you know, the dope fiend comes out of me. I'm like, all right, well, I could flush it, or I could drink it. Either way, it goes away. Fuck it, I'm gonna drink it. So I opened the bag real quick, and I had this like empty jar of Folgers, you know, like one of those plastic 16-ounce cups that comes in like a state prison package. Fucking just like put it in the little bag full of pruno, and I just start pounding it. Now, I've always been the kind of guy, I learned this young when I was in high school. I learned this little trick where I can drink anything and kind of like open up my throat, and I can just drink alcohol like that. I can drink anything like that. Just sit, you know, you pound beer. Like, you learn that. It's like a skill most people learn in high school. If you missed it in high school, you definitely learn it in college. But people know how to pound alcohol so that you don't even really taste it. It just goes down the chute. And you get quite a bit in there, right? And I'm just filling up these Folger jars, and I'm just pounding this shit. And that stuff does not taste good. You know, I mean, you're basically, what you're supposed to do when you have pruno like that, or hooch. If you're on the East Coast, it's hooch. Midwest, hooch. California, it's pruno. Mexican dudes call it pisto, which means, I think, wine in Spanish. And I don't know, I'm always saying shit like that, like trying to like show off to my chick. I'm like, la pisto. So what the fuck? And I'm like, la pisto. And she's like, you know the ghetto is Spanish? You just sound like a piece of shit. I'm like, Jesus, that's pretty judgmental. She's like, you are. Your dick stinks. All right, so anyway, I can only drink so much of it, you know? When you have this alcohol, when you make it that way, basically you get a bunch of fruit, you break it apart. So like, say it's oranges, like you get it or apples or whatever, you get it in as small of pieces as possible. You want the fruit to be all cut up. You put in the bag, add water to it, and then you add sugar. In this case, I forget what he put in there. I think it was like butterscotch candy or something disgusting. So it's like this random mix of stuff. And then you have a kicker. The kicker is something that's already rotting. You know, usually it's like, I don't know, like an apple or something. Like the more bacteria that's on it, you know, when you throw it in with the fruit and with the sugar, it turns it. And it starts turning it into alcohol, and it's very bacteria riddled. It's disgusting. And usually when you make the pruno, you get a sheet, you strain it. So all the pulp and stuff, like all the little pieces of fruit, stay on the sheet. And then you're just getting the wine that comes beneath it. It like filters it out. Usually, I mean, I'm a dope fiend, so I usually just eat the pulp anyway, you know, but like not too much of it. But there was no time to do all that. So I'm just pounding this and all this like disgusting pulpy bacteria shit's going down my throat. And I'm just like, ugh. And I'll like stop, and it's very filling. And remember, it's like first thing in the morning. It's like 5:30 in the morning. I just worked out. I'm listening to Kendrick Lamar, feeling gangster, you know, just pounding this bacteria, disgusting shit. I get to a point where I can't drink anymore. But I probably drank, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these cups. Now, usually a cup or 2 will get you drunk, especially when you don't have a tolerance to drinking. I don't know what it's equivalent to in the free world. I mean, obviously the quality is different depending on how much sugar you put in it, depending on how the person's making it. Some people have a better process than others. In my experience, the stuff that gets you the most wasted is always, what is that stuff called? Grapefruit. Grapefruit gets you drunk, and then tomato paste is a common one. Tomato paste, you know, what they would make like pizza with or whatever. It's like they have like this nasty tomato paste, and that stuff really kicks it off. I remember he made it with V8 juice too. So just, I mean, really think about that. It's like V8 juice, crushed up butterscotch candies. I think there were crushed up fireballs. And then there's just like this, like a bunch of random different fruits. And it's disgusting. So I drink as much as I can. And it's like, I'm trying to pound more and my body's like rejecting it. I'm throwing up a little bit. It's just nasty bacteria shit spewing out of me. It's gross. I probably had, you know, maybe the bag was like this full of it. It has like that much. And I'm just like, I keep like periodically looking out the window. I'm watching the goon squad. They're getting closer and closer. Now, the fact that I'd opened the alcohol, the fact that I'd flushed it down the toilet, the whole place stunk more than it would have before. I'm not really sure what my logic was. And also, secondly, I don't know why I would drink it. It's like, they breathalyze you. Like, I'm fucked. Like, now what am I? Oh, yeah, I don't know. I accidentally drank it. It's not mine, though. I don't know. I didn't know that it was alcohol. I just drank it. It's that guy's. I think he's a sex offender, too. Smash him. It's like, shut up, Leone. Hands against the wall. Anyway, so I end up flushing the rest of it. And I'm like burping. This is the thing about pruno, too. It's a creeper, right? Creeps up on you. It's happened to me a million times. You ever take, like, acid or any drug for that matter, and you take a hit and then you don't feel it, so you're like, I need another one. And your friends are like, I don't know, Ryan, maybe we should wait to see if like the first hit kicks in. You're like, nah, if I'm gonna do it, I want to feel it. That's always like the famous last words, especially with like a psychedelic, and you eat another one and then the first one kicks in and you're like, fuck, this is the first one, I'm fucked. And then you usually have some crazy like religious experience and you're like, I don't smoke anymore, it's irrelevant, you know. Pruno is very similar. You see it happen all the time. You see a lot of lightweights in prison. Like, they'll drink one cup and they'll be like, I don't even have a buzz. And you're like, wait, it's going to creep up on you. They'll drink another one and then they're belligerently drunk. That guy that I knew, we'll just call him Chuck, right? That wasn't his real name. But he was the smartest guy I ever met. He was the guy that was in Oxford, Wisconsin with me. This guy was a genius. And honestly, I don't think I would have become the writer that I did without him. I owe quite a bit to him. He mentored me, taught himself how to speak Mandarin Chinese. He's the guy that got busted because he was manufacturing ecstasy and he was buying like the sassafras from like a mom papa chemical shop online. They ended up getting busted. Like, this is like 6 years after he'd been doing it. He already like retired. He was doing fine. And once this mom and papa shop got busted like that, they looked at all the records and they ended up figuring out that my friend Chuck was one of their like frequent clients for sassafras. They're like, why is this guy like buying this precursor to ecstasy? They went and raided his house and he ended up getting like 10 years or something. So he was like very cynical and he just hated the system. And he's like one of those guys that had like turned his life around, and this was from before, but that's how the feds roll. Doesn't matter. They'll get you for shit that you did 5-6 years ago. I think they have a 7-year period. I think that's the whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. The statute of limitation. So that guy was one of the smartest people I'd ever met, but if you gave that guy even 1 cup of wine, he started getting just belligerently drunk. And he'd take his dick out and start pissing on electronics and shit. He'd be like, what? Fuck this TV. And he'd be like in the TV room and he'd like stand up on a chair and just start pissing on electronics. That was his trip. I don't know, it was weird. He had like 1 glass of pruno and he like started peeing on shit. Very odd. Jeff's like that too. Jeff's my best friend. He cannot handle alcohol, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to deviate from the story, but I was just talking to him last night. He's really weird. He says things that are very like low key antagonistic, but like, you know, it's like not direct. He'd be like, yeah, I was just talking to him about this last night. He goes like this. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna buy a house, and I'm gonna use your money. And you're like, okay. Yeah, and you're not going to do nothing. I'm just going to take your shit. He gets like that every time he drinks. He can have 1 beer and he's like that. And you're like, okay, what? And then he'll like shove you and be like, I'm taking your shit. That's how Chuck was. So I don't know what the point of all that was, but you run into that a lot in prison. People that can't hold their alcohol well to begin with. But it's not like drinking vodka or something out here. When you drink out here, alcohol can creep up on you, but usually you have a pretty good gauge of how much you're drinking when you're drinking it. You know, you start feeling the effects of it right away. Pruno can take 30 minutes before the first thing really kicks in. So I had no way of knowing how drunk I was. I end up flushing the rest of it. And the reason I said all that, I think, is just so you know, like, I have always been good with alcohol. I've always been able to handle my booze. There's a lot of people that can't, and you see it happen a lot in prison where they drink one, they don't feel it, drink another one, and they literally can't walk. You know, I, on the other hand, have always been someone that can handle my alcohol, but still, it's dangerous to drink as much as I just drank without knowing what the quality is, you know, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be belligerent, stumbling. I don't know if I'm going to start peeing on electronics. I'm going to fucking take your shit. Like Jeff, he takes on this weird, like, African-American, like, street vendor fucking persona. He's like, yeah, man, I got watches, I got this, I got that. Fuck you, I'll take your house. And you're like, whoa, dude, weird. Every time you give that guy 1 Bud Light, he's acting like that. You know it, Jeff. You know that shit's true. So I end up flushing the rest of this shit, right? And get rid of it. And I'm like one of those alcoholics where, like, if I'm at a bar, I can't handle when someone orders a drink and doesn't finish. I will dive across the bar and be like, fuck that, and just like finish it for them, you know? I can't, I don't know. It's like a pet peeve of me. I'm not OCD, but like that particular thing, it bugs me. I think it does any true alcoholic. So it kind of like, it pained me to have to flush it. So anyway, I flush it. I know Chubb's going to be pissed because he doesn't have any money. And this is like his source of income. He's planning on selling this shit to the other people in the tier. Now, something had kicked off, obviously, because that siren's still going on. And usually the guys would have come back to chow by now. I already knew because that big busload full of people that something was gonna get kicked off. So I go and I sit on my bed and I'm feeling a little dizzy from all that I just drank. I mean, I drank a lot. I drank 5 or 6 tumblers full of pruno. It's a lot. And it, like I said, it creeps up on you so you don't know how drunk you are for about 30 minutes, sometimes longer. I'm like sitting on the bed, getting up, and I'm like looking to see where they are. I'm bumping my music, and they're going by each cell. They're just throwing shit, you know, in the middle of the unit. Stuff that they find. They found some alcohol. Finally, they come up to me, and I am just starting not to feel drunk, but to get like that real head change where like all of a sudden I feel good, you know, like a rush of euphoria. And my cell door opens and they're like, sir, come here, step out. Now I'm holding my breath. Now I'm good at this. You know, I've learned this when I was at Victorville. I think I told you guys we used to go to Chow, and you could buy pruno at Chow from the Pisces that worked in the kitchen, and then you'd walk out and they'd breathalyze you or they'd shake you down. So you'd always like walk out and hold your breath while they were like patting you down. If they smelled it on you, they breathalyzed you, go the hole. And that's exactly what I did when they told me to leave the cell. I'm like holding my breath. Right away, cop, you know, they have their gloves on, latex gloves. He comes out, he's like, hey man, why does it smell like alcohol in there? I'm like, dude, sir, it's 5:30 in the morning. What do you think? I just fart liquor? I don't have any alcohol in here. Where would I get that? I'm starting to get like buzzed confrontational with him a little bit. He's like, so if I blew you right now, no numbers would come up? I'm like, I mean, I won't let you blow me unless you have like 40 or 50 bucks. He's like, hey! And he like pushed me up against the fucking wall. And that wasn't just like something clever I was trying to think of. I made some sort of joke. It might not have been verbatim, but he like said something like, well, what if we blow you right now? And I was like, well, you're not and I was kind of buzzed. So I probably said something kind of fucked up. You know, I was probably like, you're not blowing anything, you fat pig. And he just pushes me up against the wall. And he's like, this guy's drunk. Right? And I'm like, I'm not even drunk. I get handcuffed. Checks out, right? So now I'm cuffed. They don't take me anywhere. They just have me handcuffed. They have me like to the side of the building, or like to the side of the cell. So like the cell door's open. I'm on the side of it. They cuff me and they make me stand. So I'm like cuffed and I'm like right outside the cell. And like in my mind, I'm like, you know, I'm hoping he doesn't find the knife, but in a lot of ways, this might be a blessing in disguise, so I don't have to stab somebody in the name of some PC gang so that they don't kill me. So now they're like ripping my shit apart, right? And they end up finding see, I had flushed everything, but I didn't wash out the tumbler. So he smells it, smells like booze. He's like, is this yours? And I was like, yeah, but like I said, man, I didn't drink. I don't know. I keep my snacks in there. I don't know. Maybe something went bad. Sir. I'm like, what? And now, as I'm talking, I'm starting to really feel it. It's like kicking in. It's like getting progressively worse. And this is the goon squad. I think it's like a captain and some of the members of the goon squad. He goes, hey, take him to medical. Breathalyze him. I'm just like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. Now they start taking me away, right? And as soon as like, I'm like in a position where I can't really like look behind me when they're taking me, but I know that they're in the cell. So they're just kind of like walking me, my hands behind my back handcuffed. They walk me outside of the unit, and like right as we're walking outside the unit, I turn around and I see them. I can see like from that vantage point, I can see them in the cell, fucking ripping his bed apart. They're for sure gonna find the knife. You know, I'm fucked. And they have a wand too. You know, they have like a metal detecting wand. And like, you know, the fact that they had found this empty tumbler full of alcohol, you know, it always gives them reason to search more because they're looking for the alcohol, but they're also looking for weapons, whatever. They're walking me outside, you know, of the unit. So the same way that I would go to Chow, where that big riot kicked off, like one of the first riot that I was in when I was there, the one where I like ran towards a cop and I ended up getting sprayed. And I'm looking and everybody is on their stomach, like spread out throughout the yard. So obviously like a big time riot had kicked off, and they're walking me to the medical. So it's like there's the committee, lieutenant office, you keep going, and there's the medical. It's like where the old indoor gymnasium used to be, but they had turned it into like a makeshift medical place, you know? It's like you see like a basketball court, but that's like where you would go to get like a physical, or like if you get hurt, that's where you go. That's also where there's cages. That time that I'd gotten sprayed when I was with Wedo and Selly, remember when that little riot kicked off and the guy was looking at me and they ended up bringing me to the hole? So they bring me in there, I'm cuffed, and they sit me down on a chair. And the cop that brings me is talking to me. He's like, hey man, are you drunk? Just tell me the truth and we'll let you go. We don't have to go through all this. And I was like, nah. And he's like, do you know what the penalty is for being drunk? I was like, nah. He's like, yeah, I mean, we're going to take a year off your sentence. And I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't drink. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm getting progressively more inebriated. You know, it's like creeping up on me. And I'm like, my whole philosophy that I'd learned like on parole or probation is deny, deny, deny. Never admit that you've been drinking. Never do that, right? You always deny, 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 deny. So I'm sitting down in medical and they're like, you know, going to get the breathalyzer or whatever. I know that I'm screwed. I don't know if he's bluffing, if I'm really going to get another year added onto my sentence, although it sounds about right because they're very strict about drinking. Now, as this is going on, I see them bring Chubbs in, you know, and I'm like, oh man, they for sure found the knife. You know, I see them, and like the way that the lighting is, so like I'm sitting in this chair, right? And this is in this old gymnasium. So we're like on a basketball court, but there's like, you know, little cubicles that have been set up like you'd have in an office. And it's just this little makeshift like medical, like infirmary. And I see Chubbs walk in. I see, just because I know like I know his silhouette. I know, as gay as that sounds, I can like, when you spend enough time with someone, you just like know their height, the shape of their body, how the sun gently disguises them. And I can like see him walking in. So now my heart's just beating. Like I know that they've found the knife if he's coming in there. And I look and he's just completely covered with blood. You know, I mean, it looked like he had been injured pretty severely. If you've seen the movie Carrie, when she's covered in blood, I didn't see that initially. Like he just walks in and I could tell that it was him. There's a cop on both sides of him. And as he gets closer to me, like he kind of has his head down and his face is just leaking. I mean, leaking bad. And he looks up at me and I'm like, hey man, what happened? They're like, hey, shut up. And we will get into what happens in this horrible saga in the next installment. I just wanted to get something to you guys because I know I've had a few days of, you know, stuff going on in my life or whatever, but I wanted to give you guys something. China's coming up. For YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Check out patreon.com/Ryan Leone. I've made Drug Stories for Truckers available for free for everybody. That is the edited, polished version that I couldn't get on distribution for some reason. And I have a new Mike Virgin album available for purchase. It's in the pinned comments. There's, you know, it's the same story that you've heard. I'm donating some of it to survivors of sexual abuse. And there's a surprise skit on it, you know. Good version of my best story, and I really like the surprise skit as well. All right, guys. See you next time. Palabra.